We left $1,000 in cruise gratuities. Was it worth it? We left the auto gratuities on and added cash on top of it. And we'll tell you how our experience went. We're going to talk about 3 ways to deal with tips, and we're going to explain the pros and cons of each one and let you decide for yourself what you think is best, and we'll tell you what we plan on doing. Number 1, auto gratuity. That's the one where they choose to bill you on your onboard account for about $36 per couple per day, $18 per person per day, and then you pay that at the end of your cruise and you settle up there. There's pros and cons of that. There's withdrawing that and paying in cash. There's pros and cons of that because you get to have cash in hand and you get to pay people the way you feel you can get the best service. And then there's also the third option. I'm not a huge fan of this one, but there are some proponents of this that you pull your tips and don't tip at all because they feel like the cruise line has gotten enough money and they should handle this in a different way. We'll deal with all 3 of these and see which one seems to shake out the best.
Welcome to our channel, Traveling with Chris and Wendy.
All right, first, how cruise gratuities work. Auto gratuities are a daily pooled service charge of about $16 to $25 a person. Our experience has been that it's $18 per person or $36 per couple, about $250 per week. And it's shared among the crew. It's not a personal tip, by the way. You are sharing that amongst the whole crew. It's a large pool. We'll talk about that. They bridge legal wage floors. There's wage floors that absolutely have to be met. Like let's say a room steward gets guaranteed by maritime law $1,500 for an actual month's worth of work. And the cruise line then says, hey, we think you'll make $2,000. They don't have to guarantee that $2,000, but they do have to guarantee the $1,500. And much of the tips go towards that first $1,500. And some of the tips, ideally, if enough are left on, some of those tips go towards exceeding $1,500, ideally going towards $2,000, although that can vary per cruise line and other details. Cash tips. They're separate and preferred for direct recognition, though some lines require them to be declared and pooled. I had no idea. We made a video on tips before, and we learned a ton since then because we had a lot of comments. And we were just so frustrated with the lack of transparency that we just kind of gave our opinion, and we learned more and more. And many cruise lines, if you give a worker cash, that worker is legally required. Now, whether they do it or not is a different thing, but they're legally required, depending on the cruise line, to give that cash to the cruise line to be amongst the cash pool. And additionally, you can get these removed at customer service, and we did it for the first time ever, only to switch it from one account to another. We didn't pull the tip. And it was incredibly easy, almost too easy, almost enticingly easy. Like you're like, oh wow, that's a really easy way to save money. We ended up paying it, but that's the way that played out. All right, here are the 3 options. Option number 1, leave the automatic gratuities on. And we want to know what you do. Do you leave the automatic gratuities on? Most people who just want a simple cruise and not to think about it and to sleep at night and just to feel like they're going with the system, do that. And that's what we've done in the past. We roll it into the budget of the cruise and don't think about it, and have in the past, but it just became such an issue that it was like, it just became the sore spot that grew and grew and grew, where I'm like, what is actually going on with these gratuities? Okay, we'll talk about that. Pros, it's the easiest option if you want to tip. And most likely, in most cases, the floor or the legal minimum is met and some of that money does go to the worker. Now, whether you can argue all of it goes to the worker or not, that's impossible to know because the cruise ships and the cruise lines don't make that clear. But your money will typically add to the staff's salary, and so pulling tips does typically, on average, lower their salary. So know that. But here's the cons. You lose control, and you are paying a certain amount of money based on what they choose, and it goes to the entire cruise line. That's one of the things that Wendy was trying to ask about before and had a thought about.
Yeah, before this, I thought that when we paid our automatic service charge, that it went to the people that served us. Well, turns out it does not always go completely to them.
No, it goes into
small portion.
It goes into a massive pool within the cruise ship. All the tips go into the same pool in the cruise ship, and then it's distributed by percentages or other incentives as decided by the cruise line.
And I have seen several times where in the dining room, they're like, are you going to come back? Are you going to come back every night? And they're very concerned. And that makes me think maybe there is an incentive for them to get me to go there, and they'll make extra money that way.
Yeah,
I don't know.
We have no idea what the incentives are or the percentages are because the cruise lines don't reveal them, which again is a little bit of a strike against them. Any hostility or frustration you feel for them, they've kind of earned a little bit. All right, so what is a gratuity? Here's some of the language that you'll find on onboard accounts, depending on which cruise line you're on. They range from gratuity to crew appreciation, to service charge, to daily onboard service charge, to hotel and dining service charge. And if they give up that many names, it's once again, I just am not going to give a profit organization, which I'm okay. I'm like, hey, you're a corporation, make a profit. I have no problem with that. But whenever they're being a little bit ambiguous or a little bit mealy-mouthed with their words there, I'm like, that means they can do anything they want. A service charge means anything. Is it really gratuity? And the language does not say that it is a gratuity. And if you want auto-gratuities, but another pro for that, they're best if the service meets your expectations and you just want broad crew support and you just want to roll in your cruise account and not worry about it. So that's when I would do that. And that's what we've done in the past, although we're starting to rethink that. And we give tips and share our experience on cruise ships so that you can have the best experience possible and you don't have to make the same mistakes we did or live through the same frustrations we did. So be sure to subscribe so that you don't miss a thing, and we appreciate you. Option 2, remove auto pay and pay in cash. Remove auto gratuities and pay in cash. Do you do this? If so, please, we beg you, give details as to how you do this, because we're going to do this on our next cruise. We're going to take the exact amount of cash that we would pay in auto gratuities and we are going to hand it out. And we're going to give you an example of a breakdown later on in the video as to how we'll do this. But we want to hear if you have other ideas. We might adjust that. All right, so pros. You directly reward only the people who serve you well, and you can adjust the total based on your experience. Other positives. You're likely to get a bump in service. We did when we paid cash. It feels good to give people cash. And you know you're not paying the cruise line. It's iffy what happens to auto gratuities, and that's on the cruise line because, again, they don't make it clear what's going on. So, special note, I had a viewer who did a comment that said, I don't tip people who don't serve me, and I don't tip people who I don't see. And at first, we'd been attacked so much in these comments that I wanted to say, well, da-da-da-da-da. And I just thought about it and I said, you know what? I don't ever go into a restaurant and tip somebody that I don't see, or I don't, just hand people money based on the entire restaurant. I don't divide it out that way.
It makes sense.
And the entire cruise ship tip culture is mostly based on the American tip culture, love it or hate it. And so therefore, a lot of the Americans that are involved in this are like, hey, this is not how we're used to dealing with tips. We tip people for good service, one, to feel good about the good service, and also to maybe promote getting good service in the future. So when that person said that to me, that for the first time out of all the comments I've read made me say, I'm going to do this differently in the future, or at least experiment with it. So that's what we're going to do. All right, cons. The cons of paying cash: behind the scenes staff miss out. Cash may have to be pooled and many people end up tipping less overall. But again, should I be tipping people if I don't see them? But I'll also say this: if you're going to pull your tips, in my opinion, ethically speaking, you can have a different view, and please comment if you do. I think I should, if I'm going to pull tips, I'm not doing it to save money. I'm doing it to change the way I tip. So I'm going to take, literally, if it's $252, I'm going to take $252 in cash. It's going to be an envelope, and we're going to tear that open at the beginning of the cruise, and we're going to start handing it out. We'll talk about that in just a moment. Here's an example of two people on a 7-day cruise, which would be $18 per person per day, times 2, $36, times 7, which is $252. Now, according to the best information I could find, because the cruise lines, I'm not trying to beat them up, but they won't release this information publicly, trying to come up with a percentage breakdown that different people would get, this is what we're going to do. The room attendant is going to get $70 of that $252, $35 at the beginning and at the end. And the reason I do that is I want to give it at the beginning so that I can give them an incentive to give us better service. And I'm going to give it at the end based on the fact that they probably will give us that better service. I expect to, and if they don't, I'm going to start giving it to other people, but I'm not going to save money on this cruise. Head waiter, $80, $40 beginning, $40 at the end. Assistant waiter, $60, $30 at the beginning, $30 at the end, and that remains $42 or $6 a day that we can give to anybody we want. And go ahead.
Yeah, it's just so nice to sort of get to know the people who are working on the ships. And there's some people that you really connect with. And it's nice to have that personal bond with them and say thank you for working hard for us.
Yeah, shout out to Rigo on the Odyssey and Megan on the Vision.
Yep.
And oh my gosh, I don't know if she needs our money or not, but there's Cruz and Susan on the Independence. Good Lord. Some of these people if you've been on a lot of cruises, you know you love some of these people. And you'd almost feel bad because they seem like a friend, like you don't give a friend cash. Thanks for being my friend, but really they're there to make money and it would feel good to do that. And also there are people that we go to water stations over and over again and just suck down their water. And it'd be nice sometimes to go, here's $5 for all of us drinking this free water. So point is, we're going to try this, and we'd love your tips if you do it in a specific way, but this is how we're planning on doing it, and we're going to see if there's some hidden benefits or some hidden annoyances that we just don't see ahead of time, but we're going to try this because we always try things differently just to see how it works. All right, so option 3, remove and pay nothing. Pros, you save a lot of money. And you can frame this as a protest against the system, but I'll say this, if you're going to protest the system, then why don't you go all out and protest the system by not cruising? And I'm not saying that to be mean, but if you go on a cruise and don't tip, you're only protesting the workers because you're not protesting the cruise. You pay them your money, and really you're probably just taking it from the cruise workers because it does take the money away from them. But if you are going to do this, there's, in my opinion, a legitimate way to do this is you go to that service desk and you say, this is why I'm doing it. And either just directly state it, I'm protesting you and I think this is ridiculous. At least then you're openly saying it. Or if the service was so bad, you should tell them the service was this bad. And that way you're on record as this is why I did it. And obviously you'd only do it if the service was bad, but there you go. And by the way, when it comes to pulling tips, it is easy to do. And I'll give you an example of how we did it. The reason we had to pay $800, or didn't have to, but we chose to pay $800 in auto-gratuities is we paid for 4 cruisers, the 2 of us and 2 people that went with us. We were in one stateroom, they were in another, and we wanted to pay for their cruise tip. And so I went to customer service and said, how do I do that? Can I do it with a credit card? And they said, no, the only way to do it is to pull it from their account and put it on yours. And I said, okay, let's do that. And I mean, without even verifying it with them, they just said, what's their stateroom number? They told us, and they said, okay, that is off of their account. Would you like it on yours? And I mean, for a second there, I was like, I can save $400 just by saying, nah, we'll think about it and we'll get back to you. And just never doing it. It was that easy, almost too easy.
And the weird part is I was concerned of, is their attendance and the people who serve them going to get that money if it's on our account? And the lady really didn't give me a clear answer. She was sort of like, oh, it will be taken care of. And I kept saying, well, if it's on our account, how will the ship know that that attendant gets that money? And she just didn't really answer my question clearly at all.
Well, and it's funny, at the time I was like going, that would be kind of a convoluted process and somebody's going to get shorted in this. And then later on when we did more research, we realized that it's pooled into the entire ship. And so therefore she's like, it doesn't matter, but I don't want to tell you that. And so again, the frustration with that. But I also will say, it was tempting to just leave that $400 off. We weren't going to do it. So we put the $400 on ours, had $800 in tips on our onboard account, and then paid an additional $200. But we were happy to do it. It was an expensive cruise. We knew it would be. But overall, was it worth it tipping $1,000? We'll say yes, because one, we like the auto tipping system. We may or may not stick with it. We may start going to cash, but we like the system because it's simple if you can put it in your budget. Also, it was really nice paying in cash. Even though we did it on top of it, rather than putting a bunch of money on top of it, what we might do in the future is withdraw our tips. But we're going to see how this next cruise goes where we will withdraw our tips and then add the equivalent amount of cash. So we appreciate that. So why do each? And quick summary, auto is for simplicity. It's so that you can just be happy that you did it and not think about it, and you just roll $252 per 7-day cruise in your budget, and that's just the way it is. Cash, it feels good. We enjoy doing it. We think you get better service, and we're going to try this. This might be the one that we end up sticking with. And then there's no tip, and that's up to you based on what we said and what you think is appropriate. And again, we love talking to you and we love reliving these things and discussing it. It helps clear what we are learning. It gets us to do some investigation and find out some stuff. So please like and subscribe if you enjoy this information and it helps you in any way. And please give us your tips for this type of thing because we like to share with other people. We really do read them and we really do some research based on those tips. So thank you very much.